The ever-looming coronavirus. I've had a few folks ask me what my thoughts are on the coronavirus, how we should react, and what it might do. So I've been doing some research. I want to share with you folks what I think we could be in for with this here coronavirus. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts on what I think could happen, how it might spread, who in the population could be more or most affected by the virus, how it is believed that the virus is spreading. Then I want to compare the coronavirus to the flu. What all could this affect in our general lives, maybe in the medical field, or what about how the public could react? Then I'm going to share with you folks what I think a few things that we can do to be the best prepared for this as possible. First, I'm going to go over a couple scenarios on how I think this thing could go, one way or the other. Just to go ahead and tell you folks, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I am a firefighter. And so I have, kind of been around a little bit of this stuff somewhat, but I do pay attention to it. And I try not to be someone who overreacts. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a doomsday or, apocalyptic hype person. I just try to take things in and rationalize them as best I can and try to understand and think, okay, how do I need to respond to this? In the last few days, I have been doing quite a lot of research and trying to learn from some reputable sources about this virus and about the outbreak. Now, one of the main sources is the Joe Rogan podcast, where he had a gentleman named Michael Osterholm on there, who is the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy and all kinds of other stuff. He is just a very knowledgeable person who has been studying diseases and stuff for a long time and the outbreaks, and he had a lot of good stuff to share in the hour and a half or so podcast that he did with Joe Rogan. I've also been scouring the internet, reading different articles and looking at different numbers and trying to pick which ones I think are the most believable and which ones are kind of just baloney and hype. And also, a lot of this is going to be my opinion, just from based on my life experiences and what I have learned, and just how I best try to take all this stuff in. So the way that I see it, there are kind of two ways that this virus could go. We could learn how to contain it. We could come up with a vaccine, and we could be doing all right. Granted, there's still going to be some infections and stuff out there, but Taiwan is a country that is off the coast of China, and they have done really well in containing the virus. They've only had like 47 or 48 infected cases there in their huge country, or their small country, but with a high population, and they have a lot of people going back and forth from Taiwan to China. So if there was any place that would be affected by this, it would be Taiwan. But they have been using very wise measures on trying to prevent the spread of the virus. Now, China, on the other hand, and maybe Italy, things got a little bit out of hand. I don't know what happened, granted, but what I do know is there's a difference between China and Italy, and there's a difference in Taiwan. Well, how is the U.S. going to react? Hopefully, we react and end up more like Taiwan. But I don't know. No one knows how it's going to spread, or really how the U.S. is going to react. So we don't know which boat we're going to end up in. So let's say we do end up on the good side of things, and we're like Taiwan, and we control this virus. Hey, and we come up with a vaccine. Great, we have nothing to worry about. Now, let's just say, on the other hand, that this thing does start to spread. Granted, and it spreads really, really easily. I think there are a lot of negative things, a lot of bad things that could possibly happen, all right? I'm not saying they're going to, but I like to think about this stuff in advance to say, okay, what can I do? How should I be prepared, me and my immediate family and friends? So let's talk about how fast this thing can spread. And let me just go ahead and tell you, it can spread very, very quickly, as we've already seen. And it kind of snowballs, right? When one person gets infected, they may infect the people around them, right? And then, so and so and so, blah, 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 that just continues. Now, one good thing is that, inevitably, the spread of the virus will slow down. Now, whether that's because there's so many more people infected and there's no one else left to infect, or because we come up with a vaccine and stuff, and so we're able to, kind of contain it, or either we quarantine the right amount of people or something, which I don't know if that's even going to work. But then, before that happens, there's a chance, pretty good chance, that it could ramp up, the number of infections, and that it could increase before it slows down, because there is a point where, if you're looking at a graph, our graph is going up and we're infecting more and more and more. Eventually, it's going to have to level back out and turn the other way and slow down. But when that happens, no one really knows. And as more people in more countries and more regions of the world get infected, it will spread even faster as people move, as commerce and goods move. The virus could very easily move with it. So, this could really balloon pretty quick. Let's talk about how the virus spreads. Now, the gentleman on the Joe Rogan podcast, he had a lot of knowledge and a lot of things to share. One of the big things that struck me is that a person, whenever they get infected, it is maybe about 4 days from the time they're infected till they start showing symptoms. So let's say I'm infected today, right? All right, well, I'm still going to go about my life for the next 3 or 4 days thinking, okay, hey, I'm good to go. Coronavirus hasn't infected me yet or gotten to me. And in those 4 days, you are extremely contagious. So while I think I'm good to go willy-nilly, I'm out here infecting all of these other people around me, right? And when that starts happening, it gets really hard to contain the spread and to quarantine all the people that I have come in contact with. So how is it physically spread? Well, they believe that it's spread just through the air. So when we try to prevent this, if you see someone wearing just regular surgical masks, the kind that still have the gaps and stuff on the side, that is not going to prevent it. Like he was saying, you almost may as well not even wear the mask because it's still going to be transmitted from person to person. Now, if we wear the N95 mask, which kind of really seal up your face and stuff, that will do a much better job. Something else we have to think about is that not everyone is going to be very symptomatic. They're not going to be showing the symptoms even though they are infected with the virus and they are spreading the virus. Kind of like children, for instance. Which is kind of good news. The younger you are, the less likely or the less effect that the virus has on you. On the other end of the spectrum, the older you are, the more chance, the more fatal the disease can be. And generally that number is, he said, around 50, 55. Once you get above that age, you kind of get into that area where it could be a dangerous disease for you. Mr. Osterholm actually mentioned a instance where there was a school or some sort of daycare type facility where all the kids were infected, but they weren't showing signs and symptoms. But all the staff, they were showing symptoms, and so they were tested, and they all tested positive for the virus. And the kids had the virus too, but they were not showing the symptoms. So they're just, like little bitty, bugs who are spreading this virus. Not bugs. I love kids. I have children myself. But it can also be a good thing because it kind of protects the population. And maybe it could keep the schools from closing, which could have some adverse effects that we'll talk about later. All right, so who does it affect the most? Well, like I already mentioned a second ago, the younger you are, the less it affects you. Children, sometimes it has no effect. As you get up into middle age, you will have the signs and symptoms, but you will generally recover. Then once you get over the age of 55, you are more susceptible to these negative outcomes from the virus. But then on top of that, if you are an unhealthy individual, like if you are obese, if you have high blood pressure, if you were a smoker or are a smoker, there's a few other different things, if you have some respiratory issues already underlying, that could, make the virus have an even worse effect on you, and essentially there's a higher fatality rate if you have these underlying medical issues. So now I want to compare the coronavirus to the flu with you folks. All right, so in the United States, our population is 327 million people. All right, now in the United States, we typically get about 31 million flu cases annually. All right, now of those 31 million flu cases, there are anywhere between 56 to 60,000 deaths. When I calculate that, I get about a 0.2% fatality rate. But, I was looking at other places to check my number, and sometimes I saw even as high as 0.5%, a 0.5% fatality rate from the flu. Right now in China, they are reporting about a 3.7% fatality rate of the tested individuals. So what that means is that the 3.7 number may not be exact because, if you're not tested, you're not counted in that, overall number, so you're not factored into that number. But we don't really know what the number is. That's the thing. So it could be less than 3%, it could be more than 3%. But when it comes to the US population, we typically have more people, actually not typically, we have more obese people, we have more people who smoke, we have more people with high blood pressure, we have more people with health problems. What does this mean? That means that the United States could see a higher percentage of fatalities from the virus. So let's do some numbers real quick. All right, so let's just say about a third of the population gets infected with the coronavirus. Let's say that's 100 million people, right? All right, now let's just say we have a fatality rate of 4%, right? That is. Now, could it be less? Sure, it could be less, but it could also be more at the same time. But hopefully the United States is going to, get on the ball and do some things, to prevent. Well, I don't want to say get on the ball because hopefully we are already on the ball. Hopefully the United States is on the ball and we are doing things to prevent this outbreak of this virus. But there are some things that could be holding us back from that. So one of the differences that stick out in my mind on the flu versus the coronavirus is the flu we have a vaccine for. Coronavirus we don't. Now, what does the vaccine do? It lessens the severity of the symptoms that are caused by the flu, so less fatality rate, and also it is reported, or it is supposed to, decrease your chances of being infected by the flu. So we have this flu here that we can protect people from. We have the coronavirus that we can't protect people from, and it's spreading. That can't always be a good thing, all right? All right, so how long will it last? No one really knows. Now, granted, in the United States, we're kind of at the beginning of the breakout. There's not a ton of cases. There's not a lot of fatalities at the moment. There are still some, but the bottom line, we don't know how long it will last. And, there's people reporting that, hey, this warm weather is going to help kill it. Well, Mr. Osterholm, he didn't agree with that. He doesn't think that the warm weather is going to help. And he threw out a number. He said, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 6 months before we might see this thing slow down. That's a long time. So what could this affect? Well, of course, it could affect people's health, right? But what can it affect outside of that? That's what I think a lot of people aren't thinking about. All right, let's just think the import of goods. The import of what goods could be affected? Well, I don't know. A lot of really important stuff. Now, Mr. Osterholm, he mentioned that, I believe he said, about 100% of all generic drugs and medications that our population relies on to keep them healthy and alive are manufactured in China. So what does that mean? Well, if that production slows down over there, or if they halt the import of that, which I believe they may already be doing, because actually I've talked to a company over in China for my YouTube channel. They were going to send me over a cool piece of gear to test, and well, we've been talking for a few days. Well, yesterday they sent me an email and said, unfortunately, due to the corona outbreak, we are not able to send you this piece of gear, a battery charger, at this time. I'm thinking, oh boy, it has begun. So something along the lines, they have blocked off the borders for the imports and exports. So I don't know how, what exactly that's going to consist of, but we shall see. All right, so let's just say the medications get cut off. These people, a lot of people rely on these medications. I'm in the EMS field. I go into people's houses every day or every third day, and I see people who just have 20 pill bottles out. And they have to have these pills either to keep their body healthy or to keep their brain from making them go crazy, essentially, sort of, or just, keep them on level ground. Let's just say that, right? So what would happen if they stopped getting these drugs? I don't know. It may not be good. This doesn't only go for, your daily medications, but it could also affect, like if I get sick or if my kids get sick or if, with something that's non-related to the coronavirus, are those medications going to be there to prevent these other illnesses that aren't related to the coronavirus? Then we have all this protective equipment that we are trying to use to isolate our bodies from the virus, like masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, gowns and stuff. All this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's in low supply. And what Mr. Osterholm, he mentioned, he said, like in the last few weeks, when people are starting to react and to try to get some supplies that they are going to need for this virus outbreak, the orders that they put in is probably going to take the factories in China that may have shut down or have stopped their export of these goods, could take them, over a year just to fulfill the orders that were made in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they need all these products to help prevent the spread of this virus, but they either don't have enough or they're not going to be able to get enough. Possibly. All right? Pretty good chance, I think. All right, so what if we start closing schools, right? Because that's kind of something that they do in my area in the United States quite a bit, for like weather and stuff. All right, so let's just say that they close a school, which I think they could do. All right, so what's going to happen when they close the schools? Well, all right, Mr. Osterholm, he said, about 38% of all healthcare workers have children in the schools and daycare centers. So if these schools and daycare centers close, who's going to take care of the kids? Well, someone is going to have to stay home with the kids while these schools are closed. So let's say we have a large portion of our medical staff who have to stay home, that's going to leave our hospitals understaffed, which are kind of understaffed already. So if we get this huge influx of people coming to the hospital saying, oh my goodness, I think I had the coronavirus, help me, and there's not enough people to take care of them, what is that going to do? Probably not very good things. Then on top of that, in China, a few days ago it was reported that there were about 4,000 healthcare workers have died from the virus. That's not very good. And it's also reported that they have some healthcare facilities that are like, I don't know, corona wards, I'm going to call them, because all the healthcare workers, they're already infected. Maybe they have, gotten over the virus, which is fantastic, or maybe they are currently infected, but they are quarantined to the hospital where they are, taking care of patients who are already, tested positive for the coronavirus. So like, there's just like this coronavirus, little gathering place where, okay, if you have coronavirus, you just come here and we're all going to, fend for ourselves, which I think is a smart thing. That's just something that is happening. And so we have to think, all right, what else could happen in conjunction with that? What if the healthcare workers, they get the coronavirus and they're like, I'm not coming back to work. I'm staying home. Then you have people like myself. I work for the fire department, so we respond to a lot of medical calls. What's going to happen there? There's already multiple areas in the United States where firemen have been exposed to someone with the coronavirus and they have been put into quarantine. Some of them for up to even 14 days, groups of firemen who, that takes these firemen off of line so they can't respond to calls. All right, but then in New York City, something they have already started doing is when they get a call, a 911 call, and the patient is reporting symptoms that are similar to those that the people with the coronavirus have, then the firefighters and the fire truck, they are not responding to that patient. Now, that doesn't mean they're just leaving them out to dry because there's an ambulance service who supposedly is responding, but they're limiting EMS response. So what my thoughts are how far is that going to go? And well, why are they doing this? Granted, they are doing this because, what if a fire breaks out or something, and you have all these firemen who are quarantined, and there's a real natural disaster, what is going to happen? But we already talked about, how this thing spreads so easily. So let's say, the ambulance crews are going in and they are getting exposed to this person with coronavirus. Well, then for the next 4 days, they're working alongside other firefighters and other healthcare professionals in the hospital, potentially spreading the virus while they're still not symptomatic. Well, it's going to infect all of these healthcare workers. All right, then it's going to roll over to the police and stuff. All right, so then what is going to happen when someone dials 911 and there's a fire, or there's a car wreck? Is the fire truck not going to respond? Is the police not going to come? I don't know. I hope it doesn't get to that. Could it? I don't know. There's kind of two different ways you could handle that. You could try and quarantine all these people, and so that they don't infect the population more. But are there going to be other ramifications from doing that would be more harmful, like not responding to a house fire or not responding to a cardiac arrest or someone who's having difficulty breathing, which is one of the symptoms of coronavirus? Well, a lot of the calls that we go on, difficulty breathing. And sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes it is people who are in dire need and they don't have the coronavirus. So, that could be a whole different death toll there. Just by EMS not being able to respond to legitimate people who need help who are non-coronavirus related. So there's, something to think about. Now, at the department where I work at in Alabama, we have already started, learning about the coronavirus and how we're going to handle it. To an extent, there's not all the real extreme measures that have come out yet, but typically when we go in, we ask, if they're showing the signs and symptoms of the coronavirus, if they've been out of the country lately, if they've been around anyone who's been out of the country, and if they are, we put one of the little surgical masks over their face. So what did the expert, Mr. Osselholm, say about that surgical mask? He said, you may as well not be wearing a mask. You're still going to get infected. And these people a lot of times are coughing, or they have it on their hands, or it's all over their house where we have come into their residence and stuff like that. So we've been advised that if we can ask them to step outside to do that, just to lessen our exposure to the elements. But I think it's almost inevitable that people are just going to start getting infected. I think it's going to be very difficult to stop it once it starts to spread, which it's already starting to spread. So basically, what my thoughts are is, how are we going to react and how is the public going to react, right? Then that begs the question, okay, are all these emergency agencies and the healthcare facilities, are they prepared? Do they have enough masks? Do they have enough gloves? Probably not. I mean, we're already using the surgical masks for the patients. Granted, we are instructed to use the N95 mask, which seal around your face, which should do a much better job at protecting us, but it's only the workers that will get those until they run out. and the patient, the one who could have the coronavirus, will get the regular mask and still be spreading the virus all over the apparatus, all over the ambulance, all over the medical equipment, which, we do sanitize and stuff, but I don't know how well all that's going to work. Not everyone has the best sanitary and cleaning procedures. Let me just say that. So we already harped on police a little bit. What if this, filters over into the police and stuff, and they stop responding to things, maybe because they're either short-staffed or because their protocols say, okay, we're not responding to that because it fits this criteria, which is a red flag for the coronavirus. But then what if it even gets to robberies and car accidents and domestic violences and shootings? I think that's kind of farther out there, but I think there might be some potential for that, and that would be bad. So in lieu of all of this stuff happening, with the healthcare facilities possibly not being able to handle everything that's thrown at them, with the EMS possibly being in the same situation, along with the police. All right, so once that starts to happen, what are people going to think? They're like, oh my goodness, I can't even get help. I can't even get my medications. What if the grocery stores close their doors? Or what if some food you just can't get? Or what if the mail stops? You can't even order off Amazon some food for your family, or you can't even order medications, or you can't even order toilet paper. One of the things that people are going crazy about, which, hey, my wife bought some toilet paper, so I can't say anything about that, some extra, but, we just don't know what is going to happen. We don't know, as this unfolds, what all is going to happen that's going to make life difficult, and that's going to make the public react in different ways. Something else with the public is, what if they kind of quarantine whole areas, quarantine businesses, and things like that, where people go to work and go to their job? What if they, teachers can't go to work? What if firefighters don't go to work? What if, bankers and dental offices and things don't go to work? Then what does that do? Well, they're not making a paycheck. Well, there's a lot of people out there who live week to week. How are they going to pay their bills? How are they going to buy food, and which could, the prices could get inflated? How are they going to, fend for themselves? That could be interesting, especially with a lot of the population who don't have emergency funds, who don't have any savings. That could very quickly lead us to people who are hungry, people who are starving, people who don't have things to eat and drink, and they're also off their medication. How are these people going to react? They're going to be desperate, and desperate times call for desperate measures. What are they going to do? What are we going to do? Could be me. I don't know. If it gets desperate enough, hey, who knows what could happen? And that's what we need to be prepared for, in the end. Hope all this doesn't make me sound like a crazy person, but I'm just considering all the different avenues, all the different routes this could go, because we really do not know. So how can we be prepared? Well, one of the best things you can do is to try and be as healthy as possible. That's diet and exercise, pretty much. More so diet, all right? We can do things that will boost our immune system. Someone that I follow on YouTube, Dr. Berg, I will link to his video below. He talks about what we can do to boost our immune system in lieu of this coronavirus. It's very good. I think you folks should pay attention to it. All right, and then another thing is, I think it would be wise maybe to have a little bit of backup food, some emergency food at home, just in case. I don't know. What if your area gets quarantined? Or what if the grocery stores, I don't know what happens. But it probably would be wise to have a little bit of food stashed at home. Do you have an emergency fund? Are you going to be able to pay your bills, to keep your lights on, to put, I don't know what gas could go up to put fuel in your vehicle, to buy inflated prices of food? I don't know what could happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But do you have that emergency fund? What if the kids have to stay home from school? What if your work closes and you're home and you're not making an income? That could get serious, right? Now, if you're part of the older population, the ones who are more susceptible to the negative outcomes of the virus, maybe you should be prepared to self-quarantine. That is having a good supply of food at home, plenty of water and stuff at home, and plenty of healthy foods to help boost your immune system, to help you combat all the things that are going to be coming at you with the coronavirus should you become infected. But you may not even be infected, but there may be some cases around your area. You may want to say, okay, I'm not going anywhere in public right now. I'm going to stay at home as long as I can, and I may have a family member or someone drop off food and water to me, and just supplies, just so I don't have to get out there and risk exposing myself. Now, I know right now there are tons of very, very, very smart people working diligently trying to create a vaccine. But Dr. Osterholm, he mentioned the Zika virus and the vaccine. You guys remember the Zika virus? It was about 5 years ago. There's still not a vaccine developed for the Zika virus. So, could the same thing happen for the coronavirus? I don't know. It's possible. And he also said, all right, if you wanted to make a vaccine for the coronavirus, he could have one tomorrow. Granted, it would kill the coronavirus, but would also harm or kill the human that it was injected into. So the trick is creating a safe vaccine for people to use. So I don't know how long that process takes. It may not take long. They could already have one that they believe is safe, that they're doing some clinical trials on right now, and it may work. It could be 3 months, could be 6 months, could be a year. I don't know. No one really knows. No one knows the outcome of this. No one knows how much this is going to spread and just what's going to happen. But I hope I just put some thoughts into your head. And I don't want to have scared you or anything, because this isn't a time to be scared. It's just a time to be aware and to try to be prepared. Just thought I would make this for my followers, and if you guys choose to share it to your loved ones and stuff, hey, so be it. I hope it helps. Be careful reading and watching videos so that people don't scare you and incite a panic and a frenzy, because we really don't want that. Try to make good decisions, y'all. All right, take care of yourselves. And God bless. I'm looking forward to the comments on this joker. Woo!